How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, quick dialogue here. I need people to understand that working in corrections is not a popularity contest. There's a difference between being liked and being respected. And even though we've covered this topic before, I want to provide another perspective off of a recent phone call that I got from a rookie who kind of didn't understand why his old school supervisor was upset when he told the supervisor, I think I'm doing okay in the unit. The inmates like me. And then the supervisor kind of turned on him and said, it's not about what the inmates like. And then he went ahead and explained why. And I thought me and Joe can kind of dive into that part of the dialogue. But the key here is understanding the difference between like and respect, and which one as an officer you are actually trying to achieve with the inmate population. But before I bring Joe on, let me go ahead and introduce our sponsors. First sponsor we have is American Military University. If you guys are looking for a degree, seek higher education, please check out American Military University. They're very supportive of what we do in corrections, very supportive of what we do here on Tier Talk. And again, guys, we want to bring experience into the classroom. So let's get those degrees and let's shape tomorrow's leaders, if you will. So again, American Military University, please check it out. We also have my book, Inmate Manipulation Decoded. That is also on the market, doing very well. It sells pretty well across the country, even in some cases international. If you guys are looking to get a book right here, if you're entering corrections, this is the book you want to have, Inmate Manipulation Decoded. The link to that is in the description. And if you guys are looking for a book that will help navigate success in this career, there it is. How to Succeed in Corrections, published by Blue 360 Media. Guys, this book has tons of advice. You got to have this book in your hands. The advice doesn't just come from me, but it comes from other professionals in the field and also just feels good in your hand. I mean, great job from Blue 360 Media. Right now, the book is only available at Blue 360 Media, so the link to that is in the description. And very shortly, I have another book coming out, same format, sort of, kind of in partnership with this, a little bit smaller, and it's going to be some tips for our rookie staff. I think 39 tips, so it's about a 32,000 word book, but it's got some quick tips for rookies, and I think that will complement well with this book right here. But again, guys, if you get a chance, check out the link in the description, Blue 360 Media. And this brings us to Joe. What's up, Joe?
What's happening, brother? How are you?
Good, Joe. It's a Thursday. It's kind of an off time to do a show, but I thought this would be a nice topic to get out there. And thank you for, coming on the show. I know this was kind of last minute, so you are much appreciated, sir.
Not a problem, brother.
Hey, Joe, you mind introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Absolutely. My name is Joe Pomponio. I'm a retired lieutenant with the Texas Department of Corrections of 29 years, 6 months, and 18 days. I'm currently working for a local sheriff's department in the jail division and panel member here for Anthony and Tier Talk.
I love all the time how you put that into your professional resume. I love it. Hey, Joe, real quick, before I kind of, because this is really going to be a quick topic, but hey, Joe, when you hear someone saying that the inmates like them, so here I am as an officer, and when you ask me, how I'm doing, and the first thing I kind of say is, well, you know what, I think I'm doing okay. I mean, the inmates like what I'm doing. I mean, what's your thoughts right off the top of the bat? Like, what's your thoughts, man, when you hear the word inmate?
Yeah, the word like is probably not the word you want to use. We're not there to be liked. We're there to be respected. We're there to maintain custody and control of our areas. Regardless whether the inmates like us or not, you shouldn't give a shit one way or the other. As long as you are respected for the job performance that you do. You sure shouldn't hang yourself on the word like. You should never have to worry. You should never worry if an inmate likes you or not.
And guys, by the way, listen to the old school thinking right there. And that's maybe why the supervisor in this story that I had, the person that gave me a call, why the supervisor kind of flipped is we are not here to be liked. We are here to be respected. And that's something that really is brought in on us, especially at the academy level. But I want to mention something, guys. So in order to build an understanding of the difference between like and respect, and the reason why I want to bring this up is I know it's verbiage, semantics, whatever you want to say, but it matters, guys, because manipulation is very subtle, and words that are chosen for a reason. And you just got to be wary of what you hear, and then honestly, be wary of what you're hearing, what it means. Because again, this officer here is saying, well, hey, I'm liked by the inmates. Okay, and what about if you weren't liked? Is that a bad thing? I mean, that's why the supervisor, I think, had an immediate concern, because if you look at the definition of like, to like is to find a person agreeable, enjoyable, or satisfactory. Now think about this for a second. Joe, I just got to ask you a question when it comes to that definition. Being like is agreeable, enjoyable, or satisfactory, which is technically perspective driven or very subjective. Do you think, and just real quick, Joe, do you think working as a correctional officer, working as correctional staff, you will always do things that are in agreement with the inmate population?
Absolutely not.
All right, let's do point B. Do you think that you'll be doing things that the inmates always find enjoyable?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and last one. Do you ever believe you'll be doing things in which the inmates will always find to be satisfactory?
Definitely, absolutely not.
All right, Joe. So the reason why I'm concerned with the word like, and we'll get to the word respect, is because like really is subjective, and the problem is people really provide effort to be liked by an individual based on that other individual standards. So I want to be liked by Joe, which technically gives Joe control, if that makes any sense, right? Because again, enjoyable, agreeable, satisfactory. If I want Joe to like me, I have to meet that criteria, which means that Joe is technically in control because I'm trying to meet Joe's expectations in order to be liked by Joe. Now, how do I translate into the corrections world? That part is because if I want to be liked by the inmates, that means I need the inmates' permission to do my job. Would you agree with that, Joe? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. When you use the word like in respect to a staff and inmate population interactions, when you use that word like, it almost gives the meaning that the inmates no longer work for you. You're working for them. Like is a pretty subjective term. The way this officer in particular used it, I can kind of understand his aspect of how he was trying to use it. But the specific word like in general was probably not the best verbiage to use. When you use that, you make it sound like that you're working for the offender population, not the other way around. Yeah. One of the perspectives I used to use back in the training academy was, my kids don't like me. They respect me, but they don't like me. They respect the fact that, I put a roof over their head. I kept them from going to jail. They had everything that they needed, and I kept them on the straight and narrow. They may not like the way I did it, but they still respect me for it.
Now, listen to what Joe just said, guys. So if you're going into corrections wanting to be liked by the inmate population, you have to realize something. Like is external, which means that your value and what you're doing is really dependent on the perception of the inmate population, right? Because they're the ones that are putting pressure and control for you to be likable, I guess, right? I mean, hey, hey, Gangi, I don't like the way you work today because I'm not in agreement. And, well, now Gangi doesn't feel effective because the inmates don't like him. Well, again, this is not a popularity contest. With respect, it's a bit different. Definition of respect is to hold feelings of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. This is you now doing your job, right, being effective. And then regardless of how the inmates feel about it, because it really doesn't matter, you're still you. If the inmates choose to respect you, it's based on the standards of your effectiveness at the job. And to me, that truly is something that you have control of, because again, at the end of the day, if I'm looking to be respected, we all know that true respect is earned not by not doing your job, even though you may think that's the case because of how agreeable you are and the inmates liking that, they don't respect you. Respect is by you coming in, doing the job, enforcing what needs to be enforced, and then the inmates building a respect for your position, which for me carries a lot more weight than being liked. Liked could be sort of situational, technically, where respect could be long-term as long as you are constantly doing what is expected of you. And Joe, again, what are the ways that you have earned respect from the inmate population? And when you have, do you find that that respect tends to be a little bit more long-term as opposed to trying to go at being agreeable and nice, which could ultimately be more situational?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The easiest way to gain respect in a correctional environment is to be firm, fair, and consistent. If the inmate's in the wrong, then you counsel them. If the inmate's in the right, then there are times where you have to take their point of view inside. Being firm, fair, and consistent in your duties will give you more respect than trying to go in there and be likable. Nobody needs to go in a correctional setting trying to be likable. It's not high school. It's not a popularity contest. The only people that should like you are, your spouse, maybe, your neighbors, your friends. Being liked in a correctional setting is not one of the goals that you should be trying to maintain. Firm, fair consistency will gain you respect, and respect is more long-term than like.
Yeah, and it's going to reiterate something, but I want to bear with you. I wrote these notes down, so I'm going to reiterate some of my thoughts, but it's important to kind of repeat them in some sense. Being liked is pressured by external factors. It can be very subjective. It forces one to constantly prove themselves and live a life based on permission. In this case, permission to do your job. These reasons should never be the prime cause for you to do your job. Think about this, guys. You go to write an inmate a charge, but that's the inmate that liked you yesterday. And if you're so focused on wanting to be popular and being liked, you may be hesitant in giving that person the charge because you're more concerned about how they view you in efforts to be liked. And trust me, inmates employ those words for a reason because they know that it will make you be hesitant when it comes to enforcing the job or enforcing the effectiveness of your job, which is holding them accountable. Again, hey, Joe's not like the other officers. We like Joe. Now, Joe, wants to live up to that expectation of being liked. What she doesn't realize is that expectation of being liked is now making Joe very hesitant because every time he's trying to do his job, in the back of mind, he's thinking, well, if I do that, inmate Smith's not going to like me tomorrow. And he just told me he really likes me today. So having said that, be very weary of how you define what details you, what shows that you're being effective. And it really has nothing to do with inmates liking you. And for respect is different. Respect has nothing to do with being liked. Respect is not solely based on agreement, but rather your abilities and capabilities to do what is expected of you. I've seen many inmates not like an officer, but they sure as hell respected how they moved within their assigned duties. Looking to be respected has nothing to do with seeking permission to do your job. Again, that's external, not in your control, but rather just doing your job effectively and maintaining control. So if anybody gets a point here, remember this, guys. Being liked, literally, if you're looking to be liked, if you're looking to be popular, you're handing over your level of control to be effective as an officer to the approval of the inmates. Respect is different. I'm gonna do my job, and whether you approve of it or not, I'm still gonna do my job. I'm not doing my job based on how you view it. I'm doing my job based on what's promised, on what I promise in order to be effective and trustworthy. And real quick, don't shift from respect to like. Be wary of how you employ the word like or how it's employed by the inmate. So again, guys, stay firm with that respect. Make sure that at no time are you shifting the word respect to like, because they do not equate. So again, I think what the officer meant at the beginning of the story, and I think what Joe was saying was, I think the officer meant, yeah, the inmates respect me. But unfortunately, not knowing that respect and like are different and its effectiveness, he chose the word like. An old school supervisor came back and said, yo, because he knows that what like can equate to is what we just said. the permission to do your job from the inmate population. So he was quick to tell that officer, we don't use the word like. And I think at this point, what you could have meant was being respected, but be careful when you drop the word like, because like doesn't apply in this profession. Because he mentioned another story where if an inmate would go to this supervisor and said, yeah, I like the way Joe maneuvers. Oh, really? What do you like about Joe? Well, Joe seems to be very respectful. Oh, really? How so? Well, I don't know. You know, if I'm going down someone else's wing, Joe doesn't always yell at me all the time. Oh, so that's your definition of like. So now if Joe goes to enforce his job and, you know, challenges you going down a wing, you no longer like him. Well, you got to be careful. I'm saying like, because at the end of the day, that word like was truly subjective. If the supervisor getting down to the nitty gritty, asking the inmates all those questions, it truly shows you that the word like was subjective based on the inmate being able to do something and Joe's want to enforce the rules. You know, see, I get why the supervisor did what they did. So if you're the rookie and you're watching this, the one that called me, listen to what I just said. When the supervisor asked those questions, he got to the root of where the like manifests. It manifests because in the end, the inmate was pretty much happy that you didn't yell at them the moment they broke the rules. Now, granted, if you were to enforce the rules, they no longer like you. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, Joe, what's your thoughts on that? Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, like I said, you know, using the word like as a short term tactic for, you know, intrinsic values. You know, everybody has a longing to be liked at some point in time in their lifetime. The correctional setting is not one of them. And when you use the word like, it's purpose driven. There's a purpose and a reason why they like you. They like you because, you know, you don't toss their cell as hard as you toss other cells. You know, like Anthony said, they don't, you know, necessarily scream at the top of their lungs because you're on the wrong wing. You know, the word like is a very short, purpose driven word. Over the word respect. You know, respect defines an individual and how they carry out their duties, the tact and the manner in which they conduct their duties. You know, being respected goes a lot further in your career than being liked, which is a real short term.
Yeah, and as I said, you saw what the supervisor did, right? The supervisor,
yeah, and you know, and I do understand why the supervisor did what they did, because you know, I probably would have cringed and bit my tongue a little bit too if I heard, you know, the word like in a sentence in which that officer used. You know, and as I stated before, I think I understand where the officer was coming from. I just think he used the wrong verbiage to you know, enunciate himself and put himself out there the way he meant to.
Yeah, and guys, what's funny is this really is a one-on-one dialogue. But having said that, we're losing a lot of individuals that understand the core values of this profession. And, you know, sometimes we assume that those core values still exist. So when you have a supervisor coming in and quickly reminding people of the difference between like and respect, you know, that's something that I always take for granted that people know. But having said that, if we're losing all these senior people and no one's there to relay that type of knowledge, because again, I at one point it had to be taught to me as well, and I forget that. I didn't come in knowing these things, you know, but if we're losing out on people who have these core values intact, man, I can't, it's going to be extremely hard to understand what it is that's not being translated in today's world of corrections. Because again, a lot of the stuff is, when you're in this profession for so long, you could assume, or you think you could safely assume that people know these things. But then when you think about it, it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, they're being trained by someone that only has 1 year in, 2 years in. So I think the thing about this is one senior supervisor left that went quickly old school, because maybe they're under the assumption that people should know. So it, you know, as we get into this profession, you know, especially for those who, you know, are new. I mean, really new. I mean, if there's a senior staff member, man, really listen to them, because I mean, sometimes, I guess because we've been in this profession so long, we kind of forget what we had to learn. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, I can't believe that person doesn't know it. And then you got to ask yourself, well, did you know it when you went in? It's like, well, maybe I didn't know that. So this safe assumption of the 101s and the simple knowledge that we had yesterday, because we had good senior staff relaying the message, may not exist today. So that safe assumption of the 101, the translation of the hardcore values that pretty much define what we're about, something as simple as a like versus respect. A lot of people may not know that anymore because we don't have the senior staff to translate that. So as much as we feel that this is a simple lesson, which it should be, we can't always assume that people are getting that simple lesson anymore. And that to me is a very scary concept. It is a very scary concept because the problem is there's so much that I automatically assume someone's going to know that I may not even check on. And then to find out that they don't know and they're like, well, they should have known that. Really, though? I mean, really? Because, I mean, there's a lot of things that, you know, are really taught through natural dialogue and discussion outside the training room. Very simple 101 lessons in corrections that were taught outside the training room through experienced staff. And if we don't have the experienced staff, we don't have those 101 lessons that, trust and believe, we may not see the importance of them until they're not being taught that. Something as simple as this. Oh, that's a simple lesson. Yeah, it is. But what about if it's not being taught? It's a simple lesson that creates a tremendous impact, though. So regardless if the lesson's simple, it has tremendous value. Joe, what's your closing thoughts on this? This was a real quick dialogue, but a needed one, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like we were saying, you know, there are certain aspects of this job that, you know, aren't being taught the way they used to be. You know, we spend more time on policies and procedures and laws and rights and civil actions and things that, you know, we forget the simple things in our training. We forget, you know, everything that what we used to call back to basics. You know, being firm, fair, and consistent. You know, being respected instead of liked. You know, you're there to do a job and maintain custody and control. You're not there to, you know, establish a friendship. You're not that, you know, there's a lot of things that we really need to get back as a nation in a correctional setting, back to the basics and get back into teaching those little simple things like that. You know, when it comes to a correctional setting, as I said before, you're there to be respected. You're not there to be liked. You should never walk into a correctional facility with the expectation that, you know, I'm going to get these guys to like me today. You shouldn't give a shit one way or the other whether the guys like you. You're there to do a job. You're there to maintain custody and control. You're there to enforce laws, procedures, and orders. You're there to maintain custody and control, keep everybody safe, keep everything, you know, within a good sanitation value. You know, there's a lot of reasons for you to be there. Being liked is not one of them. And, you know, you don't ever walk into a correctional facility with the word like on your mind. You should be respected by the offender population, and you should also want to be respected by your coworkers and your supervisors. You don't want to be liked by anybody. So don't ever back yourself into a verbal corner using the word like in a correctional setting. That's probably one of the least favorite words in a corrections facility.
Yeah, I agree. As I said, guys, you start to lose control when you shift from respect to like, and like becomes your primary focus. But again, you know, guys, just in closing, you need dialogues like this right now, I guess, because we don't know what lessons are not being exchanged anymore, because again, we are losing senior staff. So a simple dialogue like this, I would never think would be needed. I mean, if I did do this dialogue, it would usually be a dialogue with 19 other tips about how not to get manipulated and just kind of just go through the tips. But when the dialogue came my way through this officer and him not realizing the concern about the word like and then over the word respect, which he eventually learned was the better term, that may be a bit troubling for me. more than I thought it would be. I thought about this all day, and I said, you know, let me do a show. I'm not going to wait till Friday. I called Joe up, and I said, let me get something out there because he can't be the only one. I always look at it that way. He can't be the only one. You know, he can't be the only one going into work every day worried about the pressure of being liked by the inmate population, the pressure of being liked. Think about that. That means that if you're going for the pressure of being liked, and if that is your main purpose when you come into work, you are not in control of your job, your effectiveness. So I didn't want to wait and sit on this dialogue. For some people, this dialogue is going to be very simple. For others, it could be the first time you're introduced to this. But either way, whether it's simple or if it's the first time you're introduced, share the message, because we don't know right now if these simple message, which carry tremendous value, are being taught or at least discussed with the newer people of today. Again, this is something you would assume people would know. And sadly, not only do they don't know, they don't even understand why, you know, that needs to even be said. And that is also troubling. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.